I'm Danielle Ularick. I am a writer and an EP.
That's right. And I'm Mike McMahan. I'm the co-creator of Solar Opposite. And we're, just to be sure,
And that's the correct way
yes
to
to talk
pronounce
about the thing.
Right.
We can?
Yes, as long as this is all running after the panel.
Yeah.
Not before.
We have an announcement. If you
What
guys
is-
can,
what is the thing?
If you guys can post it after.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're-
Okay, great.
No, the are posting.
Nobody knows yet that we got a season 5 pickup, and we've been working on it already. So we've already written 2 episodes, and it's fucking awesome. So
It's great.
Very awesome.
yeah, so that'll come out on the panel, and then you guys are the first people we've actually said that out loud to.
Yeah.
Cool.
That feels good.
They're like immediately like post.
No, don't tweet.
But we're really excited. It's cool, and yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome here. Excellent. So, I'd like to talk about the longevity of the project so far. And
Yeah.
That's a great
got a
lead
season
in.
5.
Yeah, you got a season 5.
Yeah.
How do you take yourself out of humanity to look at it through the eyes of space rednecks?
Yeah.
How do you stretch that disbelievability?
I think, it really goes back to when when Justin and I were coming up with the pitch, like way back, that it was, love the Star Trek shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
That originally we were like, let's take these 2 characters, it's called Solar Opposites, they're obviously going to be an odd couple, right? But they share this thing, which is observing the world, right? And one of them loves it and one of them hates it. Let's put everything that we hate about the world into one character, and everything we love about the world, even if it's trashy or simple, like the little joys are big if you're brand new to it. And a lot of it comes from having kids, where like kids are like this like I have 2 kids, Danielle has a kid, and like the little things are so magnified for them. So we treat Terry and Corvo like that. Like when they find out about Halloween, for a kid, that's the coolest fucking thing they've ever heard of, and we just drill that into our characters.
But also for kids, it's the scariest thing they ever heard of. So we got to do that with Corvo.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're talking about the Halloween episode yet, but when Mike came in and he was like, what if Corvo just thinks Halloween's too spooky? We laughed for like 2 minutes because we're like, the fact that he calls it spooky, but
Like
he's
candy
like
corn is
deathly
too
afraid and like Googling.
Let me make sure, was it a purposeful decision? It seems like the 2 main characters that are the smartest and know the most are the kids.
Yes.
Was that a purposeful?
Yes. Well, we wanted it to feel like... The reason for that is we didn't want it to straight up feel like a family comedy. We wanted it to always be like, wait, are they a family? Or are they a little mission? Are these kids? Or are they replicants? Like, who's smarter? Who's dumb? Like, we wanted it to look like a animation domination type Sunday night family show. And then always subvert that. And one of those things is that, like, the kids are kind of adults, and then they're kind of kids, and they're not even kids, So making those choices right from the get-go was a big part of it.
And starting from a sitcom-y place is always kind of anchors us. So to your earlier question, like, we do start with a human place of what would these stories feel like to us, and then we just go stupid with it.
Where was the decision to say, and I want a big chunk of this to directly reference Escape from New York?
So we were going to originally...
And I mean that in the best way.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
It's pretty
that was
obvious.
in the very original pitch. We thought we were going to have to sneak it into the show because we were gunning to sell this to a linear big broadcast like Fox.
Okay.
And then it ended up going to Hulu. And once we knew it was going to Hulu, when we pitched it to Hulu, we were like, okay, here's some stuff that's changed. The first thing is, when you go onto Hulu, you can watch every episode of something if it's on there.
Right.
It's not like you had to catch it on broadcast. It's all there. And it changed the way Justin and I conceptualized how to do the wall story. We were going to do the wall story like Itchy and Scratchy at first. Where like every once in a while you were going to see a little bit. But once we knew it was going to be all on Hulu, and we begged Hulu to let us binge drop, because if you're just rolling through the episodes and the wall stuff is growing, you might not catch an episode week to week, and I never wanted that to happen.
I got you.
So, like, in the pitch to Hulu, we were like, the wall is going to take over episode 7 of the first season.
Yeah.
It's going to become this massive thing. And it was like, as writers, we had never gotten to do that on, like, Rick and Morty. It was something we had wanted to do, but, like, we never could because it might be mystifying to somebody who didn't have the context of it. So it was always baked into it.
I will stop after.
So
Sorry, that's the longest answer.
I just don't want to take over. That was great.
that's all right.
Thank you.
With the show sort of seeing the best of Earth and the worst of Earth, do you guys come down on one side or the other, or is it changed from episode to episode where you feel? How do you feel about the world? Like, do you guys see the best in it? Do you see the worst in it? Like,
I think.
What influences what?
I mean, for me, what I think the message of the show is, and we never explicitly say this, but this is kind of how I write it, and we go in and out of this, but that the world can be good or bad, but the people that you love are always going to be good. Like, you could get in fights, you could disagree, but that, like, the Solars love each other, and they love their family, you know?
Yeah.
And that, like, they can have huge fights, and they can blow up, or they can, like, you know, the world can be after them, or the world can be great, but it always comes back to, like, the people. It's kind of a Carl Sagan idea of, like, you know, what does any of this matter except for love, right? Like, and mixing that, like, that weird kind of, like, spiritualistic sort of sense of that life only matters because of each other, and doing it in the stupidest, funniest way possible is like stupid, silly, fun Carl Sagan, as opposed to like Contact, which I love, but this is the one that you watch when you're stoned. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And the line episode is a really good example of that. How on its surface it's like, who would love to stand in a line? But then when you get into the story, it's all about, you know, Corvo just wants to be doing whatever Terry loves, even if it's the worst, most torturous thing in the world, and that's kind of like the heart of the show.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the hobby episode for that reason.
Yeah, that season really went through a change of like, Corvo's going to try. Like before, he always pushed stuff away, and now he wants to, like, because he loves Terry and he's gone through this like shift. Like, it used to be, no, I don't want to get used to it. I don't want to, like, let's not start to like it here. We don't live here. We're renting. We're not buying, you know?
Don't
and then,
get comfortable.
Yeah, and then at some point he started being like, maybe I should try, which I think we've all kind of been there a little bit, but we heighten it in the show.
You mentioned the tone and even that shift in the character. When you're running this and Lower Decks at the same time, how do you approach that difference in tone? And, like, is that shift in Corvo similar to the shift in Mariner?
That's interesting. Well, I do like thematically where you say something about a character and the character themselves, believe it, and then slowly over the run of the show, they learn that they were wrong and for reasons that the audience might not expect. And what I love about Mariner is she's a Starfleet officer. She's super capable, but something at some point happened to her that made her doubt. It gave her doubt about Starfleet. It gave her doubt in herself. It gave her doubt in the structure of the thing that she believed in more than anybody else. In Solar Opposites, it is the same, except the tone of Solar Opposites, there's no rules in Solar Opposites. Like, we want the audience to never know what the fuck is going to happen next. In Star Trek, I want it to feel like, in Lower Decks, a real Star Trek that you're watching, that you're experiencing in a way that's never been expressed before. And then in Solar, that, but for what Danielle was saying, but for a sitcom, for an animated sitcom. And animated sitcoms are already, sorry for the longest answer in the world, animated sitcoms are already commenting on live-action sitcoms. But now, since I grew up with those, and so did all of our writers, we are commenting on them and making the most crazy, big, explosive, weird, changes every 5 minutes version of it that still has an emotional core. And the point of it being, as long as there's an emotional core, you can be Star Trek. You can be a big, crazy episode of Solar Opposites, but there's a reason humans tell stories about people who feel things, and people who learn things about themselves, and that change is okay, that you can be wrong, and it's still fun to watch, you know? And sorry, that's my TED Talk.
I had a question for you. In terms of writing for this, what influences were coming from writing for these characters? Were there any particular characters or shows that were kind of in there?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially for The Wall, we love writing drama because we never get to. We all write like fart jokes for a living.
And piss jokes.
And piss jokes.
Piss jokes.
But it is really, really fun. It was like, the Wall was really drawing us in starting from season 1, and we were like, God, I hope people like this as much as we like this, or are people going to be like, what is this drama doing in the middle of this comedy?
Yeah, we're often like, well, we like this, so we don't care what everybody else, right?
Yeah, we don't care. The Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy was a cool one because we like writing kind of
that hasn't
spy
come out
stuff.
yet. That's coming your way in season 4.
Season 4, yeah. But we like all kinds of TV, so even in the Halloween episode, like, we pulled from The Crypt Keeper, the Tales from the Crypt that we all loved when we were a kid and thought was super
and the Peanut
scary.
Special, like, it really is just a bunch of nerds that love TV, that professionally make TV, making fun of our own love for TV, like, all the time.
And I think we get greedy, too, because now we're like, how many more shows within the show can we create?
We're like network execs. We greenlight our own little mini show.
Yeah.
Maniacs.
And we added to the wall this season by adding another show within the show, the Silver Cops, which we blow out a little bit more in season 4 because we had so much fun with it. And that is a slightly different tone. So Mike's doing Lower Decks and Solar and the
and
Wall
Silver Cops.
and Silver Cops and the Halloween.
What are some of the more obscure references? It's easy to figure out some of
the big broad ones.
The 80s stuff. What are some of the stuff that's like?
Well, there's a lot of stuff.
I have to put this in here.
Yeah.
There's stuff from sci-fi literature that we put in there. Like I love Wool by Hugh Howey, and I love him smashing all these characters that are like having to survive in like a in tight quarters situation. Like that made me want. And Station 11, that was another one where I was like, oh, it's people who are surviving, but the storytelling they have, the myths that they have are like, in what's her name? Emily St. John Mandel, is that her name? She like had the characters in there telling each other Star Trek Voyager episodes. That's like their new myth. So like we're pulling from books, we're pulling from comic books, we're pulling from television shows, and then we're trying to, and this always blows fans' minds, and I see this on Lower Decks as well. We're doing wholly original stuff that's just based on our own lives and our own experiences.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't always referential. Like, it's inspired sometimes, but the best stories are coming from, oh, here's a time in my 20s where I was a fucking moron, and let's talk about that, So that mix is what makes it feel kind of like a big thing of Halloween candy, where you're like, oh, there's all these different flavors.
And the cool thing is the writing room is really diverse, so we have a lot of different backgrounds coming from age and gender and ethnicity and experiences, and like we will talk about
smart people and dumb people.
we will talk about
I'm the dumb one.
The sci-fi shows, but also the reality shows that we're really into, and like so that's why I think you can watch it and you can miss stuff, but some people can catch on to some Easter eggs more than others.
I think there's a fart joke team, just particularly one.
Oh yeah, we got one big farter. We got a fart joke guy.
That's the one thing we all can have in common.
Yeah.
Next question is last question.
Okay.
Thanks. So Mike, I was wondering, I believe I heard that you started off as a writer's assistant on Rick and Morty.
I did,
and then, you carved out your own space in the Justin Roiland universe with Polar Opposites. So, like, for both of you, what's it been like growing with this show, now entering the 5th season?
It's been amazing. So hey, shut the fuck up over there. So I actually met Justin when I was an assistant at 20th, who produces Solar Opposites now. And he would come in and I would get him a bottle of water, and the execs would be running late, and I'd be like talking to him about video games and hanging out, and like we're just sort of a similar type of nerd, right? And then doing Rick and Morty with him, I started as a writer's assistant, and then I became a writer, and then eventually I was showrunning in season 4, right? And went off to do all my own stuff. So like, for me, it's the growth has really been that we are in this era where you can make your dream show. That if you really believe in the emotional stories you're telling, you can tell crazy stuff, which is like, that's a very Rick and Morty way to be, and I think I learned that as much from Harmon as I did from Justin. Justin's like the id, the craziness, and Harmon's the ego. He's like the, making sure that the emotional story's all set. And like, when I grew from that, and I'm speaking for myself because Danielle had her own path and has worked on a bunch of other stuff, but like, for me, it was having the confidence. When I was on Rick and Morty, it was to write for those guys. Like, Rick and Morty had to feel like Dan and Justin. And then when I went to Solar, and then Lower Decks, I only had to write for me. And it shifted. Like, what are the things that I liked? What are the things I didn't care as much about? And having that freedom, especially as we've been getting into, like, season 5 of Solar, which is, like, just following my own bliss and doing what I want to do. And now I'm on my 5th season. I was showrunning season 4, so I laughed myself than I was on Rick and Morty. It is freeing, it is scary, but more than anything, it's fun. Like, I love working with Danielle, I love working with all the writers. Like, every year we come back when we're in the writer's room, it is, like, the writer's assistant has to be like, you guys need to stop just chatting and fucking around. We get that you all love each other, but will you just fucking work a little bit? And we're always like, fine, But it's growing like the characters. Too. Yeah, and stories come from fucking around, but it's the same thing that I don't know your name, I'm so sorry. Sid. Sue.
Yes.
It's the same thing Sue was saying with Corvo, or for Mariner from Lower Decks, is like, I'm finding out things as I'm going too. Like, I'm growing as a writer and as a showrunner and as a producer and stuff that I only got little snippets of before, and like, learning how to do all that stuff is, you can't predict what it's going to be like, and it is just really awesome. Like, it's a trip. I love it. And I love to get to come and fucking blah blah with you guys. Like, it's awesome.